Hello and welcome to a tutorial video. This is my first tutorial video. Somebody asked me a question about doing landers. Landers that could return to orbit and rendezvous with a craft. So I figured I'd do a quick little video showing how I build them to show a heavy lander. So this is a lander that can get to orbit and rendezvous with something else, and I'll go through all of the steps that I sort of usually go with along these lines. So what I'm going to start with is the SSTU mod, the LC5 pod, and I'm just going to build my entire system around about this, just because it's fairly easy. Now, I'm just going to put a swivel engine on the bottom, and this basically turns this into a bit of an escape craft if anything goes wrong. Lacking a tiny little bit of life support, just so we've got enough for, there we go, 6 days worth. That should be absolutely plenty. Now, we want a decoupler on the bottom of this. So just going again with the SSTU stuff. We've just got a nice standard decoupler. I'm going to move that engine in a little second, but first let's work on our fuel tanks. So the entire point of this is you want a thrust to weight ratio that exceeds 1 for the planet that you're going for. Now, the way that I work this out here is with Kerbal Engineer. Now for Kerbin, in Kerbal Engineer, this is a nice little mod that even if you play stock, this doesn't add any parts, this just adds abilities. So you can select whichever planet you're working on, and it will give you readouts here of what thrust to weight ratio you'll get. So here it says 2.55, which is just going on this engine being the thrusting engine, and it says that you have 1333 delta V. When I add on that part, because there's another stage there, it says nothing, so it always counts the bottom stage as your thrust. Now, also, I'll just pull that off again to show you. You'll see that it changes in the atmosphere because a lot of engines, this one included, if you see here, the swivel, there we go, you have your thrust in vacuum and atmosphere. I'm not actually sure what ASL stands for, but it's atmosphere. At sea level, there we go. So your thrust will actually increase as you get higher up into orbit. So you want to make sure that this button is ticked, because you can sometimes get a craft that, for instance, if I just turn this off of atmosphere, if I drop this thrust down, there you go, it says 1.13. So it looks like it's got enough to take off, but if you actually look at the atmospheric calculation, it doesn't have enough. So that is a handy little button to show you exactly what you want if you're on an atmospheric body. Now, as it happens, that really doesn't matter for me. I'm just going for a heavy duty lander. And that little thruster there is just my backup if everything goes hinky. So, next we want fuel tanks on the bottom. I just want to double check that we don't have anything going through that. So, here we have a little body. Now this version here seems to have the most amount of fuel. So I'm just enabling a crossfeed and then looking for an engine. So here is a single vector engine. This, I am well aware, makes a very overkilled lander, but it's fun. Now, if I was to take this off and go for something a bit smaller, I could go for the toroidal spikes, but one of them is just enough to get me off. If I was to go for 2, I could get into there, but I don't have enough delta V, and that's my problem. I think it's 3,400. If you aim for 3,500 to get off a Kerbin, you usually got a good amount of spare. And the more spare you've got, the more you've got for playing about with orbital manoeuvres. Now, just a single vector engine here gives me a very high thrust to weight ratio, but that can be useful as well because it means I can add more fuel and it's not really too much of a problem. again, these legs will add weight. Adding weight's a bit of a problem. Just make sure you have a good amount of space between your legs and the bottom of your engine, because the legs flex when you're landing. So, ultra heavy lander, save and launch. Now from here, our launching is nice and simple. Just run by our stages. We've tweaked everything so that stages work fine, but we also have the ability here to just turn that to 0, turn on and turn off that engine. But if you got it, might as well use a staging. So full throttle, spacebar, away we go. So we just pull in the gear as we go. I just turned down the volume to stop being deafened. And then this works fairly easily. However, you want to throttle back in the atmosphere once you hit around about 200. So you want to keep accelerating a bit, but you don't want to go fast enough that you're actually starting to encounter a lot of resistance. We're currently at 32,000, but the apoapsis is up at 42. 70,000 is your limit for atmosphere. Obviously, if you're doing this on Tylo with this type of lander, it gets a lot easier because your apoapsis can be a lot lower with no atmosphere. Now, as you see here, we're actually about to run out of fuel. So this didn't quite have the amount of delta V required. Delta V is also affected by the engine. So here we are again. Now I've kept these two sections 5 meters, and I've just dropped this down. So this is now back to its original. This has dropped my delta V slightly, but it's increased my thrust to weight ratio. Again, this is a fine balancing act. Too much you'll blow up in the atmosphere, but you can always throttle it back. Too little and you'll actually just hover. That's why you always want at least around about 1.2. I'm a little light here, starting off at 1.15. But we're getting into the atmosphere. Getting up quite nicely. I'm going to use time warp, but I'm not going to push it too far because it starts introducing errors which can throw you way off balance. But there we go, 10 seconds from apoapsis, so I'm just going to whack this on full. Kill my throttle because I ran out. In fact, what I'm actually going to do is just drop that stage. And start up this stage. So here we are, I'm just bringing this stage up to orbit. Periapsis height is slowly increasing. So just holding Alt and the time warp button gives you physical time warp. And there we go, we are in orbit. Just. So one of our capsules is in orbit. This is nice and simple. Now for the second part of this, I was of course asked about orbital rendezvous. So I'll make something that can get to this. Now I won't show you me making it because this video is going to be running long as it is, but I'll show you just how I get to orbit. Right, now to the bit that is complicated. Even more complicated. This is getting an orbital rendezvous. So as you can see at the moment, our lander craft, which I'll set as a target, is further ahead than we are, and we need to catch up with it. So what we can do is just time warp. So as you see here, I'm time warping ahead. Now what I'm actually doing is I'm going to time warp until I'm on the light side, because nobody likes rendezvousing in the dark and it makes for a really bad video. So I'll just go around once more so you can see what I'm doing. Now here I'm on a day side, and there is a continent behind me, a little bit more. Here's a continent behind me. Now as a rule of thumb, this is what I use, is that I want the craft that I'm going after to be above this. Now this is for rockets, it's different for space planes, depending on your space plane, and this is a rule of thumb that I use. So the rocket's there, throttle full, and away we go. Trying to bring it up slightly, and as you can see I'm actually getting very close to orbital speeds, although I'm still in the atmosphere. So that's why I'm getting a bit of a burning effect there. Now all I'm doing now is coasting up, and I'm just shutting off this outer ring of the engines just to make fine tuning these things a little bit easier. Now I'm already in space, so I might as well just time warp a bit ahead. And another little time warp, stop me going too high. And there we go. So we're now in orbit. The problem is we are not in the orbit that we need for this. We're close, as you can see here. This is our intersect time. So all I'm going to do is add a maneuver here that just gives me little adjustments. And now I'm looking over here at this part. So it's 17 kilometers away, and all you're doing is just pulling and pushing the intersect node. 14 kilometers, 4.6, so that went the other way. And it can be quite difficult to see these sometimes. .5, 3.8, 1.7, there we go, we're getting towards winning territory. Can't see that anymore. So all you want to do is point yourself towards the maneuver. You can't do this manually, and obviously I have better burn time installed, which gives me a better readout of what I need to put in. So I need 73 meters per second of delta V. I've got 651 left in this particular ship, so that should be plenty. And then all we're doing is just waiting for the burn. So you want to make half of your burn before your node and half after. Now this has a slightly different way of doing it. There we go, I'm just fine tuning the node. Oop. And there we go. 0. So hopefully, if I just make another node here, just say warp there, and then it'll warp us round, and as you can see here, it'll get further away for a bit, and then it'll get closer. And I want to switch on to target mode and hit retrograde, which will slow you down relative to the target, so you won't be moving away from the target. Then that little jump as we load, and that's us. And with the big boost from the outer engines, I have very quickly slowed down to relative. Now I'm bringing this to 0. What I'm going to do is, I'm just going to point towards our little craft and give a kick. And then it's facing away from me, so what I'm just doing here is I'm just waiting until I pass before I slow it down. And I'm opening the docking port. And there we go. And now I'm just turning off all of the engines. So what I want to do now is I want to hit control from here. Now on the ball, I want to rotate the craft until north is up, or roughly up. That gives me a good idea of what I'm aiming for. And then I'm just going to hit set as target again, because that'll give me the actual docking port on the lander. And bring it on the RCS. So we're just going to move across a bit, as you can see. I'm also keeping an eye on the Delta V because I need that to get back out of orbit. A little bit of time warp-a-rooney. Now I'm just bringing it back a tiny bit so that it'll line up. Here we go. Now you can also hit caps lock, which will give you fine controls. And just before contact, I'm just turning off the SAS, just to make it a bit easier. And there we go. So just while I'm here, steal all of the fuel, transfer our little guy to rescue him. And you could steal all the life support, but it doesn't need it. What I am going to do, however, I am deliberately dragging this into the atmosphere to try and make it explode. Now just watching the heat of that tank. As you can see here, I have a big thermal warning. Oh, that's not good. And we're about to explode. Called it. And that's why I need the extra fuel. This ship can't handle the re-entry. But this is also why you should always put parachutes on everything, just in case. And as you can see, that's where I hide my life support for this thing. All I'm doing just now is trying to whip it round, just to slow it down. And there you go, so that's my rough idea of a bit of a tutorial on getting a lander that can get to orbit and get back. You want to balance your thrust to weight ratio with your amount of fuel. To be honest, for me, it's fairly impossible to do without Kerbal Engineer. I'm not that versed and I use a lot of mods. The first one that I think anybody should get is Kerbal Engineer. When it comes to orbital rendezvous, if you're not that experienced, we have MechJeb here. MechJeb has a whole load of little things that it takes way too long to explain. Just have a play about with them and you figure them out. And it also isn't foolproof, so keep an eye on whatever you're doing. But you do have dock and autopilots which give you all of the instructions you need. You have maneuver editors that will help you. If I just bring it up, maneuver node editor, no, wrong one, planner. So this has all your different options here that you can go through, from fine tuning a closest approach to transferring to another planet and all sorts in between. And you also have an automatic rendezvous autopilot. You just hit your target, click go, and that's you. So for new people, it's a good idea to have it, but it isn't foolproof. You can't leave it alone. Occasionally it'll dip you into the atmosphere, do something else stupid that will kick you into space. You have to keep an eye and double check everything it's doing just in case. But I use it all the time. It helps with an awful lot of things. So yeah, that's my video. I hope this is helpful for the person that asked, and I'll see you in the next video.